Hi, this is Chris Walker. Let me tell you about the single most expensive mistake I see people make in home theater, and it has nothing to do with buying a bad TV. It's actually worse. It's buying a great TV that's completely wrong for your room. You know the feeling. You spend weeks obsessing over perfect blacks and infinite contrast. You drop $2,000 on that top-tier 65-inch OLED. You set it up, you're excited, but then 2 weeks later, you're sitting on your couch watching a movie, and you get this sinking feeling in your gut. You realize it looks small. You realize that perfect picture doesn't matter because you're squinting at it from 12 feet away. You just paid premium prices for a monitor experience in your living room. See, the industry wants you to obsess over nits and dimming zones because that's how they sell you the new model every year. But the physics of your eyes, that doesn't change. Today, I'm going to stop you from becoming that statistic. We are going to fix the math on size versus quality so you never have that buyer's regret. And look, we buy these massive panels ourselves. We don't take free review units from manufacturers because I need to be able to tell you if the flagship model is a ripoff without worrying about hurting a brand rep's feelings. That independence is expensive. So if you want to support honest, wallet protection tech journalism, do me a favor. Hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. It tells the algorithm that truth still matters. Here is the science behind the mistake. It's called the Retinal Resolution Limit, but I just call it the wasted money line. Most of you watching this, I'd bet good money you are sitting about 9 to 10 feet away from your TV screen. In the US, that is the standard living room setup. Couch on one wall, TV on the other. At 10 feet, if you buy a 65-inch TV, even the best, most expensive 8K OLED on the planet, your human eye physically cannot resolve all that extra detail. You are paying for pixels you literally cannot see. But what you can see, what your brain is screaming for, is field of view. To get that cinematic immersion, that feeling where you stop looking at a TV and start looking into a movie, THX recommends a 40-degree field of view. To get that at 10 feet, you don't need 65 inches. You need at least 85. Anything less, and you're just watching the news. You aren't experiencing cinema.
This brings us to the mistake killer, the product that exists specifically to solve this distance problem without bankrupting you. This is the TCL 98-inch QM851G. And look, numbers on a spec sheet do not prepare you for the physical reality of a 98-inch panel in a regular home. It is a monolith. It is a wall of light. When we unboxed this for testing, the sheer surface area was comical. We are talking about nearly 30% more screen real estate than an 85-inch. It changes the architecture of your room. But here's the insider math that makes this interesting. We track price per square inch. On a high-end OLED, you're paying about $1.80 per square inch. On this monster, you're paying closer to 75 cents. It is the most efficient way to buy immersion in 2026. And it's not just big, it's aggressive. This thing hits peaks of 5,000 nits. For context, a standard laptop screen is maybe 400. 5,000 nits isn't just bright, it's a flashbang. If you are the bright room socialite, you have big windows, you watch football on Sundays with 6 people over, you have glares hitting the screen from every angle, this backlight muscle simply crushes reflections. The dimming zone count is up over 5,000 now, which means we are finally past the days where big LED TVs looked washed out and gray. The blacks are deep. Not OLED deep, but deep enough that when you turn the lights off, the letterbox bars on a movie mostly disappear. But, and here's the trust part, you need to know the downsides of going big on a budget. First, the dirty screen effect. When you manufacture a piece of glass this big, getting the backlight perfectly uniform is a nightmare. On our unit, during fast panning shots, like a hockey game or a quarterback looking downfield, you can see these faint vertical shadows. It's not broken, it's just the physics of a panel this size that isn't $20,000. And then there's the heat. I'm not joking, this TV is a space heater. We measured a 3 to 5 degree temperature spike in our 12x12 test room after 2 hours of HDR gaming. It draws over 450 watts. You're adding a significant load to your electric bill, and in the summer, your AC is going to fight this TV. Also, check your furniture. The feet on this thing are nearly as wide as the TV itself. Unless you're wall mounting it, which, by the way, requires finding 3 studs and a mount rated for 130 pounds, you probably need a new media console. But if you prioritize holy cow factor over pixel perfection, this is the only way to go. Real quick, I need your help for the next slate of reviews. The comment section on the last video convinced us to do this size versus quality deep dive, and I want to keep that streak going. What is the one category that feels like a total scam to you right now? Is it soundbars? Is it those expensive AI washing machines? Drop a comment below with what you want us to buy and test next. I read the first hour of comments personally, so let me know. Now let's look at the other side of the coin, the precisionist. You're the person who says, I don't care how big it is, I want it to look perfect. You're looking at the LG 77-inch C5 OLED. This is the Evo panel technology, and for years, this has been the gold standard. And I get why. When you watch this TV in a dark room, it is seductive because every single pixel is its own light source. You get infinite contrast. There is no blooming. There are no halos around bright objects. The motion processing is buttery smooth. It feels expensive. It feels like a piece of precision engineering, whereas the giant TCL feels like a piece of heavy machinery. But here's the trap. In the store, 77 inches looks huge, but get it home, put it on that wall 12 feet away, and suddenly the theater is gone. You're watching a very pretty, very sharp television. You aren't immersed, you're observing, and the math gets brutal here. To go from this 77-inch OLED to an 83-inch OLED, which is still way smaller than the 98-inch LED, you're often doubling the price. You hit a screen-size tax wall with OLED technology. The manufacturing yields just aren't there yet for massive panels at affordable rates.
And we have to talk about brightness. The C5 is brighter than older OLEDs, hitting around 1300 to 1400 nits in small windows, but the full screen brightness, like a hockey rink or a snowy field, it drops dramatically. If you have that sun-drenched room we talked about, this TV is going to struggle. The Auto Brightness Limiter, or ABL, will kick in to protect the panel from burn-in, and your bright white snow scene will turn dull gray. However, if you are a gamer, specifically a competitive gamer, the conversation changes again. The input lag on the C5 is virtually non-existent. The response time is instantaneous because it's OLED. There is no ghosting behind moving objects. If you sit 6 feet away in a gaming den or a bedroom, the LG C5 is arguably the best display on Earth. But we aren't talking about bedrooms today. We're talking about the main living room. User experience is another split. LG's WebOS has gotten cluttered. It's full of ads, trending now rails, and sponsored content. It feels like the TV is trying to monetize you after you already bought it. But the Magic Remote, the one where you wave it around like a Nintendo Wii controller, is still the fastest way to type in passwords and navigate menus. It's a love it or hate it, but it's distinct. Connectivity is a win here for the precisionist. LG gives you 4 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports. That means you can plug in an Xbox, a PlayStation, a PC, and a high-end soundbar and get maximum performance out of all of them. Many of the budget giant TVs, including some TCL and Hisense models, often limit you to 2 high-speed ports, and one of them is usually the eARC port for your soundbar. So you're playing a game of musical chairs with your HDMI cables if you own multiple consoles. That is the kind of friction that drives you crazy 6 months after the purchase. So the LG C5 is the safe bet. It's the TV your tech-savvy friend tells you to buy. It wins the awards. It tops the best of lists. But if you put this 77-inch screen in a room where the couch is 12 feet back, you have failed the assignment. You have prioritized the quality of the pixels over the impact of the image. You have a Ferrari, but you're driving it in a school zone.
Which leads us to the middle ground, the brand that claims to do both, the brand that charges a tax just for having their name on the bezel, Sony, specifically the Sony Bravia 9. Is it possible to get the brightness of the TCL and the nuance of the OLED? Yes, but you are going to pay for it, and I mean really pay for it. This is where we get into the flagship LED category. The Bravia 9 is Sony's attempt to kill OLED with mini LED. They developed a new backlight master drive that supposedly controls the light with surgical precision, and I'll be honest, it works. When we ran the Starfield test, the one that usually makes LED TVs cry, the Sony held its own against the OLED. It didn't crush the stars into darkness, but it didn't create big gray clouds around them either. It is a stunning technological achievement. But here's the trust-first reality check. The 85-inch Sony Bravia 9 costs nearly double what the 85-inch Hisense or TCL costs. Double! Are you getting twice the TV? Absolutely not. You're getting maybe 15% better processing, slightly more natural skin tones, a better upscaler for your old cable box. Actually, let's pause on that. Upscaling. This is the boring stuff nobody puts on the box, but it matters. If you watch a lot of cable news, sports on YouTube TV, or old sitcoms, the Sony processor is magic. It takes that garbage 720p signal and makes it look like 4K. The budget giants, TCL and Hisense, they struggle here. They tend to over-sharpen, making people look like they have plastic skin. Sony preserves the grain. It looks like film. So the Sony Bravia 9 is the no-compromise option if you hate money. But for most of us, there's another player, a player that has been aggressively stealing market share by being 90% of the Sony for 60% of the price. That player is the Hisense U8N. If you're looking at the 85-inch model, this is the product that keeps Sony executives awake at night. On paper, it's a beast. Mini LED, thousands of dimming zones, peak brightness that rivals the sun, and it costs significantly less.
Here's the insider truth about Hisense. They tune their TVs to win the store floor war. They crank the saturation. They boost the blue light. When you see this thing at Best Buy under those harsh fluorescent lights, it looks better than the Sony. It pops. It screams, "Buy me." And if you get it home and leave it in vivid mode, you might think you won the lottery. But once you calm the settings down, you start to see where they cut costs. Viewing angles. This is the Achilles heel of these high-contrast VA panels that Hisense and TCL use to get those deep blacks. If you're sitting dead center, the captain's chair, it looks incredible. But if you're the guy sitting on the love seat to the side, you're watching a different movie. The Sony Bravia 9 uses specialized optical layers, the X-wide angle tech. To fix this, Hisense, they just let it wash out. So if you have a wide living room with seating in an L shape, the person on the end is going to have a bad time. And then there's the motion processing. We call it red ghosting. It's gotten better in the 2026 models, but it's still there on these VA panels if you look for it. In dark scenes, fast-moving objects can leave a little smear behind them. Sony doesn't do that. LG OLED definitely doesn't do that. It's a subtle artifact, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Is it worth saving $1,500 to tolerate a little ghosting? For most of you, yes, absolutely. But don't say I didn't warn you. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Chris, I don't trust Hisense. I want a Sony, but I can't afford the Bravia 9. I'll just buy the cheaper Sony, the X90L or the Bravia 3. Stop. Do not do that. This is the brand trap. You're paying for the badge, but you're getting 3-year-old technology. These mid-range Sonys are not mini LED. They're standard full-array local dimming. Here's the math. The Hisense U8N has thousands of dimming zones. The Sony X90L has maybe 100 or 80? I've lost count, but it's low. What does that mean? It means blooming city. Every time subtitles pop up, the whole bottom of the screen lights up. Every time a spaceship flies across a starfield, it carries a halo of gray fog with it. At 85 inches, these flaws are magnified. You cannot hide bad backlight tech on a wall-sized screen. If you buy the mid-range Sony over the flagship Hisense or TCL, you are objectively buying a worse picture to get a safer brand name. That is a bad trade in 2026. So what about the other giant? Samsung, specifically the S90D. This is where things get controversial. This TV uses QD OLED, quantum dot OLED technology. QD OLED is special. It takes the perfect blacks of OLED and adds a color volume that is just nuts. Reds are redder, greens are greener. It's the punchiest, most vibrant image you can buy. If you love that pop, this beats the LG C5. But it has a fatal flaw for the bright room socialite. These panels lack a polarizer. When ambient light hits them, the deep blacks turn into a raised purplish gray. In a dark room, it's perfect. In a bright room, the contrast visibly drops. It's weird physics, but it's real. And here's the trust first scandal that Samsung really doesn't want me to talk about. It's called the panel lottery. With the S90D series, Samsung is mixing and matching panel types. Some sizes use the glorious QD OLED panels we just talked about, but other sizes, and sometimes even the same size in different regions, use standard WOLED panels, the same type LG uses, that are less colorful. And nowhere on the box does it clearly say which one you're getting. You're literally gambling. You could pay full price for the next-gen tech and go home with the standard tech. How do you know? You have to check the service menu or look at the pixel structure with a jeweler's loupe. That is anti-consumer behavior. It's confusing, it's sneaky, and it's why I have a hard time recommending the S90D as the best overall, even though the picture can be amazing. If you buy it, buy the 55, 65, and 77-inch versions. Those are usually QD OLED. Avoid the 83-inch S90D, it's almost always the older WOLED type, and you're paying a premium for it. Let's take a breath and talk about the software, because whether you buy the TCL, the Sony, or the Samsung, the built-in Smart TV interface is eventually going to betray you.
The TCL and Hisense use Google TV. It's actually the best interface in terms of content. It finds everything, but on these budget chips, it can get laggy. You press the button and the TV thinks about it for a second. That drives me nuts. Samsung's Tizen OS is a mess. It's cluttered, the settings are buried 5 menus deep, and it tries to force Samsung TV Plus channels on you constantly. Here is the pro tip that saves your sanity. Budget for an external streamer. Don't rely on the TV's brain. Buy an Apple TV 4K or an NVIDIA Shield. It bypasses all the lag, all the tracking, and all the bad UI design. It makes a $2,000 Hisense feel like a $4,000 Sony. It is the best $150 upgrade you can make. But, and this is key, that takes up one of your HDMI ports. Remember what I said about the HDMI port shortage on budget TVs. Now you see the bottleneck. We have to talk about longevity, because this is the question I get in the comments every single day. Chris, will that cheap 98-inch TCL last 10 years like my old plasma? Look, I'll be honest with you, no, probably not. We are seeing higher failure rates on the power supply boards of these massive budget TVs. When you are pushing this much voltage to drive 5,000 nits of brightness, components degrade. Heat is the enemy of electronics, and remember that 98-inch TCL is a heater. Sony and LG generally use higher-grade capacitors and better thermal management. Their power supplies are over-engineered. We see 10-year-old Sonys still running fine. We rarely see 10-year-old budget brands that haven't had a repair. So here's the calculus. You can buy the 98-inch TCL and a 5-year extended warranty and still pay less than the 85-inch Sony. That is the hack. Do not buy the budget giants without the protection plan. Consider it part of the sticker price. One more thing about immersion that isn't visual. Sound. Physics again. As TVs get thinner, speakers get worse. The Samsung S90 sounds like a tin can. It's embarrassing. The Sony Bravia 9 actually has a cool trick. Acoustic multi-audio. It vibrates the frame to make sound come from the screen. It's decent. The giant TCL actually has enough cabinet volume to fit decent speakers. It gets loud, it has bass. It's not home theater quality, but you can watch the news without your ears bleeding. But let's be real, if you're buying a 98-inch screen and using the built-in speakers, you're committing a crime. You need a soundbar at minimum. So we have the value giant, the OLED precisionist, the flagship king, and the budget aggressor. The market is fragmented, but I promised you a framework to fix the size mistake. Here is your roadmap. This is how you navigate the minefield without blowing up your wallet. We're going to break this down by your reality, not the marketing hype. If you live in an apartment or you have a dedicated man cave where you can control the light completely, blackout curtains, no glare, and you're sitting closer than 9 feet, you are the precisionist. You buy the LG 77-inch C5 OLED. Why? Because at 7 feet, your eyes can see the difference. You can see the perfect pore detail on an actor's face. You can appreciate the infinite contrast.
In this specific scenario, the immersion comes from the quality, not just the scale. And frankly, a 98-inch TV at 7 feet feels like sitting in the front row of an IMAX theater. It's nauseating. You'll be moving your head back and forth just to see who's talking. Stick to the OLED. It is the reference standard for a reason. But, and this is the vast majority of you, if you have a normal American living room, open floor plan, windows you don't want to close at 2 p.m. on a Sunday, and your couch is 12 feet back against the far wall, do not buy the OLED. I don't care what the reviews say. I don't care that it has perfect blacks. In a bright room at 12 feet, an OLED looks dim and small. You'll lose the shadow detail to glare, and you'll lose the cinematic feel to distance. For you, the best overall choice, the one that solves the size mistake, is the 85-inch mini LED, specifically the Hisense U8N or the TCL QM8.
Here is the trade-off you are making. You are giving up that last 5% of perfect black performance in exchange for a 40% larger image and double the brightness. That is a winning trade every single time. The immersion factor of an 85-inch screen completely overrides the slight blooming you might see on a loading screen. When the movie is playing, when the explosions are happening, you aren't looking for halos. You are just grinning because the image is massive. Now, if you're lucky enough to have the budget and you refuse to compromise, if you want the size and the quality, you buy the Sony Bravia 9. It's the only LED TV that truly mimics OLED performance. It's the end-game display. But remember, you are paying a massive diminishing returns tax. You are paying double the price for maybe a 15% better picture than the Hisense. Only you know if your bank account can handle that hit. And regarding Samsung, I want to love the S90D. The colors are incredible. But until they stop the panel lottery, until I can guarantee you that the box you buy actually has the QD OLED panel you paid for, I cannot recommend it as a primary pick. It's too risky for a purchase this big. If you find a verified QD OLED model on a massive sale, go for it. But check the return policy first. Let's talk about the psychological aspect of this, the regret factor. I have read thousands of comments from you guys. I have seen people regret buying a budget TV that broke. I have seen people regret buying a TV that was too dim. But the number one regret, the one that shows up constantly, I wish I went bigger. Nobody, and I mean nobody, buys a 98-inch TV and says, man, I wish this was smaller and slightly sharper. They get used to the size in 3 days, and then every other TV looks like an iPad to them. But I see people return 65-inch OLEDs every day because they feel underwhelming. That is why I call the TCL 98-inch QM851G the mistake killer. It forces you to prioritize what actually matters for entertainment: scale. It forces you to stop pixel peeping and start watching. It's not a perfect TV. It's hot, it's heavy, and it has some DSE. But for the price of a mid-range OLED, it gives you a home theater. That is the value proposition of the decade. So, here's the verdict. If you are a gamer or live in a dark cave, LG C5 OLED. If you have unlimited money, Sony Bravia 9. But for everyone else, for the 90% of you trying to fix your living room setup, stop looking at the 65-inch aisle. Walk past it. Go to the 85-inch or 98-inch section. Buy the Hisense U8N or the TCL QM8. You might see a little blooming, you might see a little ghosting, but when you're sitting back with your friends watching the game on a screen the size of a garage door, you won't care about pixels. You'll just be glad you didn't make the mistake of buying perfect when you should have bought big. I've dropped links to all of these below. And listen, I've been very specific with those links. For the Samsungs and the TCLs, I've linked to the specific batches and model numbers that we've verified are the good panels, so you don't get stuck with the old stock or the lottery losers. Using those links keeps this channel independent and keeps us buying these massive crates so we can tell you the truth. If this helped you save money or saved you from a return hassle, hit that sub button. Tell me in the comments, are you team size or team quality? I want to see the fight in the comments section. I'm Chris Walker. Stop squinting at your TV. Go big. I'll see you in the next one.